Space Talks Mind Mastery one more time and again. And we have a great topic for you as usual. And remember, if we say anything that you feel, hey, that sounds like me, make sure you reach out to us at safespacetalks@gmail.com or your local facility therapist, doctor. Make sure you say to yourself, hey, I might need to get myself checked out, and it's okay. It's okay not to be okay. Guys, I'm gonna go and shame myself. I try to turn this phone down, and I thought I did. Didn't I say, Latoya, let me turn my phone down? And it just won't listen to me sometimes. So I apologize because I swear it happens every time we get on live. So cognitive immobility is when you feel trapped between two locations. It's a mental entrapment.
Yeah.
Not like Jada Pickett, entrapment. Okay, so it's a mental entrapment that leads to conscious or unconscious efforts to recreate past instances in familiar locations. Example, feeling homesick, right? You leave somewhere, but your mind is back home, right? But your body is over there, and you keep remembering or wanting to return back. So, not necessarily cognitive immobility, but as I say, if it is exaggerated when you're feeling homesick, it may be. So you need to, weigh that out. So
Yes.
say you move from New York to Mexico, right? Your body's in Mexico, but your mind is in New York City. Okay. And this may cause you to feel unsettled mentally.
Mm-hmm.
That's exaggerated, feeling mentally unsettled.
All
Okay.
right.
Cognitive immobility can happen when leaving an abusive partner, switching careers, when caring for a loved one who's terminally ill or has dementia, recovering from a traumatic experience, or making a major life change. So, cognitive immobility may set in if you've been, dealing with these kind of life changes.
Yeah.
And so, you can be present in the body, but your mind is somewhere else in the past. And so, you ever talk to someone and you're like, where'd you go?
Mm-hmm.
Could be cognitive immobility. So I'm gonna pass it on to Dr. Latoya.
Thank you, Nigeria. That was an awesome intro to the topic of cognitive immobility. And thank you guys for tuning in. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are viewing. Thank you for being here. And so, as Nigeria said, cognitive immobility is pretty much being trapped or feeling like you're split in between two places. So, you are torn between there and here. And so you may not have heard about it before, but I'm pretty sure you've experienced it or you know someone who has. So that term or the phenomenon of cognitive impairment was coined by a researcher, Dr. Alumba, in 2022. So it's new, right? The term is new, but the
Right.
phenomenon is not. This is something that people have dealt with for years, you know. And so when he discovered it or when he named it, he was concerned about how he felt when he left Nigeria and moved to the UK.
Not me.
Right.
I don't know
So
that.
you know, some people literally, so this is why we're talking about this, right? Some people can be so stuck in their past that
Yeah.
they cannot embrace what God is trying to do in their life now. And so
Right.
you think about, we think of biblically, right? We're talking about the children of Israel when they leave Egypt, and then God is taking them to the promised land. They
Right.
can't even enjoy where they are at the present time because their mind is too is
Stuck in
stuck
Egypt.
back in Egypt. So they getting, I
That's
mean,
so
miracles.
good.
He raining manna down from heaven, and
Yeah.
they worry about cucumbers and eat. So you
Right.
you got a full on miracle here.
Right.
And this is what we're talking about. So in theory, cognitive immobility happens in response to what's called cognitive migration. So basically, before we move or before we experience that change in our minds, we like to imagine what it's going to be like, right? So,
Right.
for example, if I have to move to Florida for a job and I'm
That's
here in
good.
Virginia,
Hmm.
in my mind, I'm going to be thinking about the sun, the beaches. I'm going to be
Right.
thinking about the palm trees, seafood, all of that stuff. But then say I move to somewhere like Gainesville, Florida, or the northern part of Florida with no beaches. And I'm used to being able to get to a beach in Virginia.
Right.
I
Right.
may get there and I may be like, okay, this is not what I thought. And
Right.
so I may begin to be stuck in Virginia, comparing it constantly. Well, we have this in Virginia. Well, in Virginia, we
Oh,
did this. So I can go here. And you know what I'm saying? And so
yeah.
what happens is I'm stuck in Virginia mentally, and it immobilizes me from being able to enjoy Florida. And
Right.
that's where the cognitive immobility comes into play. So it can happen when you, like Nigeria said, if you're changing from being single to being married, you can experience cognitive ability. You stuck back when you were single, or even starting a new career.
Right.
So, what does cognitive immobility look like in our bodies? Like, what type of negative impact does it have? Number one, it can cause anxiety. And so if
Right.
you think about, you're constantly ruminating about the past.
Yeah.
If you are in a relationship, you're in a new marriage, excuse me, say you've been divorced, you're comparing your new husband to
Right.
your old
New
husband.
husband.
you know
Right.
well, we went here, and when I was married to him, he did that. And, well, sis, why didn't you just stay married to him? Apparently there was a problem, right? You decided to leave. Now you're remarried, and now this man is having to pay for your cognitive immobility, your inability to leave that past situation. So now
That's
you
good.
arguing, right?
That's good.
Now you
Pay
got
attention.
conflict in your relationship that's
Yeah.
causing stress.
Right.
Another thing is, you may not have any real identity because you're stuck. It's like, hmm,
Mm.
I'm no longer a New Yorker, right? But I'm also, I'm not a Floridian either. Like, I don't, where do I
Right.
belong?
Right.
I'm stuck in between situations, so I have no real identity. Um and then two, it's just mentally exhausting. If you're
Yeah.
constantly ruminating, it's not anything, it's not positive. You may be thinking
Right.
about good things that happened in those places, but it can't be a positive experience to constantly go back there and not be able to move on.
Right.
Another thing is, you might be socially isolated. So if you're moving to a new area and you can't get beyond your old place, you might be reluctant to find new friends.
Right.
Or you may feel uncomfortable, so you isolate yourself. So now you got loneliness. Sometimes you may
Yeah.
have depression, right? So if you think about a college kid going to school, and Nigeria mentioned homesick, this is beyond homesick, right? It's beyond just, oh man, I miss home. No, you're crippled. And so you can't even enjoy your college experience. You can't meet new people. You can't network because you're so stuck mentally back at home. And
Right.
so another negative effect that we probably don't think about is, sometimes it can cause somebody to go back to an unsafe environment.
Right.
So say you're with an abusive partner, and you leave, but your mind is still there. So you think about all those good things, because in abusive relationships, you have those honeymoon periods,
Right.
and you're stuck there. So you go back. So you go
Right.
back into an abusive situation, and that can affect your life. And so, of course, there are different stages to cognitive immobility, but one of the things I feel like, in ministry, we can move from one church to another church,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or we can move from one role to another role. And you're constantly comparing your new church to your old church.
Old church. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, at my old church, we did this. Another example would be, say, for instance, if someone's spouse passes away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Oftentimes you hear about where, say, for instance, a wife loses her husband, she gets remarried. she wants the house to look exactly the same way as it did with her previous husband, because in her mind she feels like if she changes things, she's erasing him. But the problem is you're subjecting your new spouse to those memories. They're not there. Listen, they didn't have those precious memories you had. All they're looking at is you're rejecting me because you won't let go of the past. So now you got the family pictures of you, your children, and your late spouse. It's
Right.
not fair for that person to
Right.
have to live, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
constantly live through that. You got to do something about it. And so, Nigeria, you got anything you want to
Yeah.
expound upon that?
A part of that too is that when we talk about immobility and we talked about fight, flight, freeze, you can also get into that freeze mode where, that's stuck. You're
Yeah,
what Dr. Latoya is talking about is just being stuck in a zone mentally. And
yeah,
we talked about the hippocampus, the amygdala, and the elliptic system of the brain, which you have to go back and look at some of our videos because as we do these lives, each one is definitely showing you how everything is connected. And
yeah.
again, we have these issues or these presenting not problems, but it's just our body and our mind that is to protect us, to guide us, to lead us, to make sure we are safe. But that's why I always say when it's exaggerated, then we're entering into another dimension of our mental wealth and stability. So when we freeze, it's like, say, someone who's been abused, right? They could be like, I'm so mad. I'm so mad. And it seems dormant. That's a frozen state. Like,
Hmm.
if when you're not dealing with that mental capacity, you're like, yo, they made me mad. You got all this body language. I'm mad. When, you know, when you're dealing with cognitive immobility, it'd be like, I'm so angry and I'm so upset, and it's kind of docile. And so those are when you're talking to people, and you guys know how I feel. We can't dismiss people. We want to help people, and so we have to look for these signs, and not just, again, as I always say, this person has issues, that person has issues, and they may, right? But
Hmm.
how can you help if you're a friend? How can you help your strong friend, right? We always want to say, help our strong friend. Well, these are signs and telltale signs that something may be wrong. It's not that it may
Right.
be, but telltale signs that something may be wrong. Also, with cognitive immobility, you have the some people have the ability to disassociate. And
Yes.
I understand that to be, let's say, a female being molested or raped. Women can sometimes just totally disassociate the action that's being placed upon them. And actually, that's a safety measure, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
there, so our body and our mind is so connected that it is superly designed to protect us. And so
That's
a
good.
female being assaulted or attacked has that capacity to disassociate. Now,
Hmm.
the issue is we have to bring her back. Once this is all
Right.
done, this is a very traumatic experience for anyone who's ever dealt with that. Domestic violence, anyone who's ever been beat, male or female. Okay,
Hmm.
not just all female. Males go through everything we're talking about: fear, cognitive immobility, ruminating. This is universal. And I always say
Yeah.
mental health is a universal situation. It's not just a one ethnic background situation. It doesn't just affect black people. It affects everybody who has a mind. And
Yeah.
so, dealing with, I mentioned earlier, dealing with someone who's terminally ill, I've gone through that. And I've had to disassociate myself sometimes because it hurts so bad to watch
Hmm.
someone literally dying before you. Um, and I can attest that I definitely disassociated at on
Hmm.
different times. It was like I would go to the hospital, make sure that the individual was dressed, clean, ate, And then I would leave, cry in the car, and just, don't want to deal with this. And so, our minds are always designed to help us in these traumatic situations. And
Correct.
so we're here to let you know that it's okay not to be okay, but don't let that not being okay last too long. And
Mm-hmm.
I like what you talked about in relationships. When, you meet someone new and you always talking about what you used to do, what this, then, come on now, snap out. You got to move on. And that's the problem with cognitive immobility. It's a demonstration of not being able to move on or push past a situation
Mm-hmm.
that is detrimental to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good, and I'm really glad that you brought up um, dissociating, because we do it more than what we probably realize,
Right.
especially children who have been in traumatic situations.
Right.
So children who've experienced abuse, and like you said, there's
Yeah.
many different situations where a person could dissociate, but it definitely happens a lot in childhood when it comes to abuse.
Yeah.
Um, and so you separate yourself from what's going on, and it is a protective mechanism, right? Because
Right.
that particular experience, it would be so overwhelming that it probably literally would take you out, so your brain has to take that and take you somewhere else. And sometimes when people experience dissociation, they feel like it's kind of like an out of body experience.
Yeah.
And even though it's not in itself cognitive immobility, but we've mentioned these things because sometimes they can blend, right?
Right.
So
Connect.
a person who has cognitive immobility might dissociate, right? The new environment may be so traumatic, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes, people are coming from a traumatic environment. They may be coming from a war zone or a city,
Right. Right.
that is riddled with crime. They may leave that, but then because they, are so immobilized in their mind, that in itself can be traumatic. And so therefore they can begin to dissociate. And
Right.
so and then that causes a lot of problems. So
Right.
if a person is constantly dissociating, or constantly being separated from where they are now, they could have memory issues. They can
Right.
have difficulty with performing tasks. They can have low productivity at work. They
Right.
could have issues with getting things done at home, or just, and may have some issues in their social life because they don't seem to be there, right? They just
Right.
constantly like checked out. So even though it's different, it still has some of the same themes. And a person who is experiencing cognitive immobility can also experience, like Nigeria said, dissociation. And it's definitely common in trauma,
Yeah.
traumatic
Yeah.
experiences. It is. But so there are several stages to cognitive immobility, and one is the awareness phase or stage. So this is the first phase, and the person becomes aware of the stress and anxiety that's caused by
Mhm.
leaving a certain place or a certain situation. And then that's when their mind is entrapped. And so there's a lot of uncertainty, right?
Right.
So they have an issue with being resettled or being integrated into their new experience or location.
Hmm.
So they may have difficulty with, learning a new language or learning culture,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
maybe they come somewhere and they have a difficult time learning the street names. They might be, in New York they might know all the streets, but
Right.
they
Right.
they come to Virginia, they're like, what, where,
Right.
they may be looking for something else. They may
Right.
not be able to remember the streets, but they can remember landmarks or something. But they may
Right.
have
Right.
difficulty
Right.
integrating. The second stage is retrieval. So um, that's when a person will consciously take steps to try and relive the past, right? So
Wow.
maybe they'll get like certain memorabilia, or maybe they'll travel back and forth, to that place that they left. Or when it comes to relationships, maybe they'll be scrolling on somebody's Facebook page,
Yeah, yeah.
reminiscing, so or they might send them a just thinking about you
Gotcha.
text, you know what I'm saying, to just be to try and retrieve some type of
I
experience,
love
so
that. I love it.
this stage is it helps kind of release some of that tension, right? And so you're kind of like um giving yourself a teaser, right?
Right, right,
And then the third stage is stabilization. So in this stage you're kind of finally coming to the grips that life has changed, and so you are attempting to retain values and seek goals that can alleviate your loss. So in this stage, if you look at, if you remember the analogy of me moving to Florida from Virginia.
right.
Maybe I get to Florida and I try and find a church that's, similar to the church that I had in Virginia. I know it's not the same, but I'm gonna look for
Right, right,
certain things, certain similarities. And so then that helps me to be able to um, integrate into the new culture or the new area. Another thing, sometimes you notice people who move from a certain area, like there's a lot of people in Virginia that move from New York.
right.
So if you find people who came from where you came from, it's easier for you to kind of ease into
Connect,
and get
right.
it right and integrate into the new area. So that's the stabilization phase. It's like, okay, I get it. I'm not going back. This is it. This is my new life. And so,
Right,
and this is the stage that reduces anxiety the most, right? Because
right,
you're no longer in limbo. Now you're moving into the new direction.
right. Yeah,
So, when you think about this, as Nigeria mentioned, when it comes to, your current life and your relationships, you can see how this could be um it can be detrimental to
right.
some people, right?
Yeah,
You can see how it can cause conflict in your relationships. You
yeah.
can see how it will affect you at work. It can affect your productivity. It can affect you being your creativity. And so you could really and truly feel stuck in life if you have this cognitive immobility. It's impossible for you to enjoy where you are. And so
Right.
anytime you can't enjoy the present where you are and you're stuck, whether you're stuck in the past, right, with the cognitive immobility, or whether you're stuck in the future with the
Mm-hmm.
cognitive migration, either way it
Right,
go, you
right,
still
right.
struggle. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? You
yeah,
still
yeah, yeah.
aren't appreciating the here and now. And
I like
so
that.
we
Yeah.
do it so often and we don't think about it. It's like, I never knew this even had a name.
Right,
I
right.
when I first moved to Maryland from Texas, I promise you, it was the same. I was like, wait, this place is supposed to have all the good seafood. This is trash.
Yeah,
It was like,
right, right,
I'm used to driving 75 miles per hour. Like, what is going on here?
right,
It took me a while to be able
right,
to
right,
adapt.
right,
Um, and then it wasn't until I adapted, it was trying for me to leave again. When you're in the military, you got to kind of move
right.
around. And it's like as soon as I got settled in that place, then I came to Virginia. And I did the same thing. I compared Virginia to the DMV area. I compared it
Uh,
to Texas. And it wasn't until I hated Virginia when I first got here, I'll be honest. It wasn't until Holy Spirit told me, stop talking about the place where I caused to bless you.
mm, yeah,
When I had that conversation, I'm like, okay, Lord. He's like, I caused Virginia to bless you. Why are you
right,
bad mouthing the place where
right,
I called you to bless
right,
you? And I
right.
thought about all of the things that I had accomplished being in Virginia. And I said, Lord, you're right. And it changed my perspective totally. I
Mm,
began to look at what Virginia offered and I began to, appreciate it more
yeah.
instead of just constantly, there's no good barbecue here. The laws in Virginia are stupid. It's like,
I
why are
get
we
it.
doing this? Like, what? This makes no sense. And I'm telling you, I will go on this whole tangent about stupid stuff. Why do we got to have all
Right,
these taxes? What is with this?
right, right,
You know,
right.
we got to, I mean, food and beverage tax, look at me tax. It's like a tax
Right,
on
look at me.
everything.
Right. Look at me, tax.
And when I first got here in Nigeria, I was depressed.
Right,
I
right,
was. I was so depressed. I felt so lonely.
right.
Um,
And that's
and it
part
wasn't.
of cognitive immobility. Those are some signs as
Yeah,
well.
I'm
Yeah,
telling you, it was hard. It was hard. Like the literature shows, it was hard integrating
right,
to this place because it just had this nasty. First of all, when I moved here, coming out of an abusive situation, so it was an expedited transfer. So, like
right.
we said in the past earlier, when you have to abruptly leave a certain
Abrupt.
situation,
Yeah, yeah.
and so you're not ready for it, and you get here, and
Right,
it's like,
right,
what in the world?
right.
And then people in Virginia are just different. If I don't mean to be offensive to anybody, but people here are a little different,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it took me a while to
Right,
get
right,
used to that different, and embrace that difference.
right,
Because sometimes different can be good,
right.
and we can learn from it. But that's just my experience with cognitive immobility. And so, what can you do?
Yeah.
Because that's really kind of what we got to get
Wanted
to.
to
How
share.
can we provide solutions
But you
to
know what I
cognitive?
heard though? You know what I heard when I was doing my research for this?
What?
Is that it can cause cognitive immobility? Y'all ready? Social media.
Really?
Yes. Going through, strolling through.
Mm-hmm.
There's some things, right? Because it's the memory of places, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's the memory of these experiences that you had. And so we're speaking of relationships, abusive relationships, or what have you. So now you're scrolling and you're seeing these lovely relationships, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking about the relationship you was in, no love, you was abused, and now you're starting to feel like I don't ever want to be in another relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Frozen zone, that I never want to do this again. You hear people say
Mm-hmm.
that again. This is exaggerated behavior, and so you're seeing these different things. Or say
Yeah.
we was talking about moving to Florida from Virginia or New York to Mexico. So now you see the place where you used to live,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you scrolling through. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm mentioning this because I tell you, I know social media is a social experiment, and I promise you, if I did not have a business, I would not be on there. I tell
Yeah.
everybody that. And people are not realizing these effects. Everything we're
Mm-hmm.
talking from
Mm-hmm.
fear, narcissistic personalities, disorders, everything can stem. These being on social media can activate these emotions in you.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
even realize
Yeah.
why you agitated, why
Yeah.
you're having anxiety, why your body is literally responding to these visuals
Yeah.
that you're seeing, right?
That's
And
good.
so,
That is
yeah,
so good. I never
yeah,
thought about that, but that is so true. It can be
yeah,
triggering,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Definitely
That's so good.
triggering, and you gotta be careful. So tell them how they can what they need to be doing.
Yeah. And stay out of people DMs, you know. you know, just, just, just avoid it, right? Avoid
Right,
going on,
right,
avoid scrolling. Listen, sis, you do not need to know what he doing and who he
right,
doing it with. It's not your
right.
business.
It's none of
Just
your
let it
business.
go,
Move
bro. She
on.
can
We
move
got to talk
on.
about how to move on because we're talking about being
Let it
stuck and
go.
frozen. Like
Yes.
you have to break out of that. Also, a lot of this, and y'all know I love the kids. Let's say your family and you have a star athlete in your family, and the mother and
Mm-hmm.
the father are just praising Bobby, okay, and Bobby is this and Bobby is that, and oh my goodness, he won again. And so Bobby's your brother, and you like, hey guys, it's me over here, and they're like, no, sit down, don't go in Bobby's room, don't eat Bobby's food, don't
Mm.
touch Bobby's this, that can cause cognitive immobility because now, and other things, but in a sense that you're just like, you want to please your parents, but you feel like, they didn't respond to you. So you carry that as you get older, and then,
Mm.
you're just kind of frozen. Like maybe you have a creative desire to want to do something, but Bobby overshadowed you, if you understand what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
So mentally, you're mentally stuck back there when you felt like you weren't good enough, when you felt like why try, when you felt
Right.
like you were being
Right.
ignored. And so
Yeah.
now fast forward as an adult, you're stuck there, which will immobilize you and keep you from moving forward and discovering what gifts you have,
That
you know?
that's
Yeah.
it. That's
Yeah,
it.
that's good. That is so good. So you mentioned you know, getting out of this situation, right? Climbing out of it. Number
Right.
one, you've got to focus on the here and now.
Right.
So, mindfulness. You've
Being
got to be
present.
mindful,
Yeah.
of your current situation. Two, you've got to stop those. Nobody can stop the negative thoughts from coming in your mind.
Right.
You can't stop thoughts from coming, but you can stop them from staying.
Mm.
Thoughts are going to come, but you're responsible for where you put those thoughts, if you hold on to them or if you kick them back out.
Right.
And you say
Right.
no. This is a place, this is a new place, this is a new experience, I'm going to embrace it. Like, you got to
Yeah.
turn those negative thoughts into positive ones.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
and then two, you got to make a conscious effort to create new relationships,
Right.
positive ones.
Right.
You've got to make a
Right.
conscious effort that when you find yourself strolling on social media, when you find yourself riding past that old
DNA.
house, you got to tell yourself, listen, I'm done. You know what I'm saying? Me
Right.
and Ray Ray
Right.
are broke up. We ain't get back together. And I'm not riding past that house now one more time, seeing who parked in the driveway. I'm over it.
Right. Right.
you know it takes
Story.
a conscious effort. You got to stop yourself, you got to talk to yourself and say,
I
self,
say that
I'm
all the
done with
time.
this,
Talk
right?
to yourself out loud.
Yes.
Stop.
And
Don't
then,
think about that.
right, and focus on your family. If you don't have a family, like I said, try and build new friends and focus on those things. Focus on your new career, ways that you can develop that, ways that you could grow in that, right? And then, hey, simple things: exercise, eat
Yeah.
right. you,
Exercise
you
is
begin to
perfect
focus
for
on living
cognitive.
better and living healthier. You don't have time to ruminate and think about all that stuff in the past, because your mind is focused on building a new you you
Right.
know and if it gets to the point where it's severe enough, where it's causing a lot of distress, Nigeria posted on there, though we are medical professionals, we're not your medical professional. So definitely seek help.
Right.
Whether that's talking to your primary care provider and saying, hey, I'm noticing that I'm having anxiety about this, or whether it's finding a therapist, finding a psychiatrist, whatever,
Right.
a counselor, whatever it may be. Seek help and speak to them about what's going on. And sometimes, even though you may be experiencing cognitive immobility, it may have caused something else. You may be dealing with another psychological disorder that can
Right.
be identified and diagnosed and treated properly with a medical professional. If you feel like it's severe enough where it's really and truly crippling your life, and you're having a lot of physiological and psychological issues behind it.
Right.
So, we all go through it. We've all experienced it to a certain extent, but if it's in excess,
Right.
and if it's
Right.
causing you harm,
Right.
if it's affecting you, and your blood pressure's up, you
Yeah.
having panic attacks every time you see something, every time you think about something, now it's time to seek help. Now it's
Right.
time for you
Right.
to go and be seen by somebody in your community that can help you. If you can't, do those other things
Yeah.
and get out of this kind of limbo situation.
Yeah, because that's what it is. You're in limbo, you're stuck, you're kind of just like, you know, that woe is me and no one can help
Hmm.
me and why me, right?
Yeah, right.
But one thing is true about the frozen part of being in cognitive immobility is that exercising is key, because when you're frozen, you gotta kind of, loosen up. And like I said, when someone's like, I'm angry, this person made me mad, you notice that docile effect. In order to kind of really get out of that, you have to exercise, some stretches. I'm no professional on the workout scene, hiding my,
Just get moving.
yeah,
Do
yeah,
something,
like take
you
a
know.
5 minute walk, to
Mm-hmm.
clear your mind, and everything is set in your mind. And I like
Yeah.
what Dr. Latoya said. You have to talk to yourself. You have to say to yourself, I'm not gonna take this anymore, or
Yeah.
you don't want to be that person, right? Don't be that person, right? Don't
Yeah.
don't be that person that
Yeah.
allows yourself to get stuck. You got 5 minutes to be stuck and then go get some help.
Yeah.
Everyone has the right to have their emotional pool, right?
Right.
Just don't turn it into pity parties. Don't turn it into repeating it over and over to your friend. Like
Mm-hmm.
every time you call, and you keep telling, you say the same thing over and over and over again, and I say to you, like, well, this
Listen,
is
sis.
what I suggest you should do, and you don't do it, and then you want to call and keep talking about that. I'm not going to let you, I'm not going to
Listen.
be dumb, okay? I'm not
I'm
going to
not
be,
gonna listen.
yeah, I'm not going
I'm
to do
not.
it.
You're
I'm
not
going to
gonna
tell
keep
you to get
on.
help, okay?
Yes.
Because I can't, every time we talk, that's the same subject matter, okay?
Right.
So
And
I say
that's
that.
a clue.
I
Right?
was
That's
saying
a
that. I was
clue.
saying
You
that
know
to
what I mean?
tell those
That's a
who are
clue for you.
watching, if
If
you got
you
that
just listen to
friend,
yourself, if you if you listen to yourself and pay attention to your conversations, and you
yeah,
keep repeating the same chick's name or the same guy's name, or you talking about the same old job or the same old church, and well at my well we used to, you hear, well, just start, just take a time out, you
right,
know.
right, right. You
Because
know, so I,
that's
man,
an
I used
introduction
to
to
do
some
it
foolery
this
that's
way.
about to
I used
follow.
to do it that way. They can't
Yeah.
do it a new way. No, this is how it should be done.
Yeah.
Again,
That's why a lot of people, churches can't grow.
mm,
Not to be changing it,
right,
the
right,
subject
right.
that way, but seriously, sometimes,
But
your
individuals
ministry can't
too.
grow, your business can't
Your
grow.
business, right?
Blockbuster is gone. Okay?
I
Netflix is
hate it
it.
when Blockbuster was gone. I love me
You
some Blockbuster.
listen, you won't find
I
not a
love
one.
that. That was good what you just said. Blockbuster is gone. And
It's
honey, it's getting
gone
ready to be
because
a
the
lot
way
more
it didn't
getting ready to be
adapt.
gone in 2 more minutes with these robots.
It it didn't adapt to
Right,
change. And
right.
so, if you want to grow, man, you've got to adapt. And so,
I
as we
like
wrap
that.
this up, we understand everybody will experience this to a certain extent. We all will, because
Right,
we change, right?
right.
We move, we change careers, we're
Yes,
constantly evolving. Life happens.
right,
But as Nigeria said, give yourself a few moments, assess, how you're thinking, assess, how you're speaking. And if you find yourself in this, repetitive conversation or ruminating about where you used to be, it's not good. Like, you've got to make a decision that, okay, I'm going to discover some new things about this place. I'm going to embrace it, and I'm going to see how I can plant, how I can grow where I'm planted,
right,
how I
right.
can blossom in my new environment. It may not be where you want to be. It may not be what you thought it was, but it can become what you think it is,
That's
if that
good.
makes sense.
Yeah,
It can become what you think it is. You are the author, you're the creator. Create the situation you want to have. But
yeah, I
that
like.
won't happen if you're stuck on repeat from your past.
Yeah. And so some quick letters for you to remember: ERA, examine, resolve, and take action. We love us some you. So thank you for being with us one more time and again at Safe Space Talks My Masteries. And we will be back next Wednesday. Please share, tell a friend to tell a friend. And hey, if you missed our special edition with Apostle Chris, please go back and watch that video. And we are looking forward to having some more special editions. So if you would like to be on the show, email us at safespacetalks@gmail.com. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
All right.